receive those. Thank you. Just doing a quick recap for those of you that will be joining via the recording. We will be sending free resources, discount codes, and also the recordings to all of the sessions from MBA week, and you can expect to receive those by Sunday. And then here's a quick plug for Leland Plus. Many of you have already heard about this. It's a subscription to help you with your MBA applications. It's full of video guides, resources, templates, sample admit materials. It's a really great place to get help on your MBA application, very affordable. And we're also doing a giveaway this week. So given that you've attended this event live, you have automatically been entered as part of the giveaway. We'll be giving away 3 free subscriptions to Leland Plus. And for those of you who have already purchased or already subscribed for Leland Plus, if you win the giveaway, we'll just go ahead and process a refund. So highly, highly recommend going and checking that out. And Erica has already dropped the link to Leland Plus in the chat. A great place for you all to start. And also, if you're already in the thick of working on your applications, a good place to get some additional resource and help. So here's a quick agenda for what we'll be covering in tonight's session. We're going to do a quick round of introductions, so you'll get to meet our panelists. I'll give a quick overview of Leland and what we provide in terms of support and helping you apply to MBA programs. Then we'll have our MBA expert panel, and then we'll have some closing remarks and thank our panelists and wrap up MBA week. So quickly, here's some of the Leland team. I'm Andrew Dale. I work in growth here at Leland, and I'm a current Kellogg MBA student. And then you'll also see Erica in the chat. Thanks to her, we've had this amazing week. And then we have Amelia, who works really hard on the content side of things, and John, our CEO, Stanford GSB alum, and also a Harvard Business School admit. So here are a few people that you've seen throughout the week, and this team will also support you throughout your journey as you join our community, participate in other events, and start working with coaches on our platform. So would love to take the time to now meet our panelists. First and foremost, thank you all for being here. We're really excited to learn from your experience and your expertise. And I will turn it over to Mario, if you don't mind going ahead and introducing yourself. And then we'll just go in order from top to bottom in terms of introduction. So Ariel, you'll go next, and then Wyatt, and we'll go from there. So Mario, over to you for a quick intro.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mario Del Cueto. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I went to the GSB and graduated in 2022, which meant that I had 1 year very COVID impacted and 1 year kind of a more regular experience. I've been doing admissions consulting for 3 years now, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about my application process to Stanford as well as my experience there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ariel Anderson. Nice to meet you all. I graduated from Harvard Business School in 2022 as well, same as Mario. My background is in healthcare and currently working for Teladoc Health, and also have been doing admissions consulting for the past 2 or so years. Excited to chat with you all today.
Hey everyone, my name is Wyatt Frazier. I am a current first year or second year, rising second year student at the Wharton School. Before this, I was a U.S. Army officer, and I graduated from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point during my undergrad. This summer, I'm at a legal tech company doing some kind of chief of staff type work with them. So really excited to talk about Wharton and share some insights with y'all. So thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy. I graduated from MIT Sloan in 2021. So I had roughly a year that was impacted by COVID and 1 year that was not. Outside of that, I worked at Bain & Company for 4 years, and now I do a bunch of freelancing work, and I also coach a good amount through Leland, and I'm excited for tonight's session.
Hey everyone, my name is Janeet Gandhi. I went to Northwestern Kellogg, graduate in 2021. I was part of the 1Y program, the one-year program, and I primarily focused on marketing and entrepreneurship there. Now I work in consulting. I work at McKinsey out of our New York office, and I've been coaching for MBA as well as consulting for some time now through Leland. So excited to talk more about my Kellogg experience.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Wade. Super excited to be with you all today. I'm from St. George, Utah, and attended Chicago Booth from 2019 to 2021. So like some of the others, I had about the first year normal life, and second year was kind of impacted by COVID. I've most recently been working at Salesforce in tech, and am currently operating a small e-commerce business as of just the last few months. So super excited to share some tips as well as my experience with everyone.
Hey everyone, my name is Yi. I'm currently a rising second year at Columbia Business School. And prior to Columbia, I worked in consulting for 4 years at Kearney, based in New York City as well. And I will be going back to consulting actually after my MBA. So super excited to just take 2 years off. So currently I'm doing an internship at Neutrogena in brand management based in LA. So super excited to be talking with you all.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for introducing yourselves, and excited to learn more from you during this session. So now we want to get to know the audience. If you don't mind dropping in the chat, where are you dialing in from, and what is your dream MBA program? So we'll give you a minute. Please drop those comments in the chat. Got someone in Chicago and Kellogg. Awesome. Arizona, Denver, New York, Harvard, Toronto. Good to see some more global presence. Mongolia. Awesome. Yeah, keep them coming. Would love to see where people are at, and where their dream school, or what is their dream school. Awesome. So now going to go into a quick overview of what Leland is. So Leland is a one-stop shop to help you reach your ambitious goals. So a couple things that we can do to help and support you in accomplishing those goals. One is one-on-one coaching. So all the amazing panelists you see here today are coaches on our platform. They have experience and expertise in MBA admissions, and they can provide you help and support one-on-one to help you with your application. So that could be resume reviews, helping you craft your essays, helping you pick and prepare your recommenders, interview prep, you name it. Tapping into someone's expertise and getting that one-on-one help and mentorship goes a really long ways. The second thing is group classes. So we have coaches that will teach 60 or 90-minute sessions on our platform, geared towards a specified topic. So common MBA group classes that we've seen are like the Harvard Business School essay, the Harvard Business School interview, the Stanford GSB essay, how to pick, prepare, and guide your recommenders. We have lots of group classes that are circling throughout the application process and throughout that timeline. So be sure to check those out. It's a really good way to get access to expertise at an affordable cost. And then we've already touched base on Leland Plus, but for those that joined after, Leland Plus is a subscription to help you with the MBA application process. So we have video guides, resources, templates, and sample admit materials like essays and resumes and letters of rec and other content in there to provide you the help and support you need in applying to MBA programs. And we've helped thousands of applicants get into top programs. This is just like a small snapshot of all the people, of a few people that we've helped apply to and get admitted to top programs. So you can see a lot of the logos of the schools like Harvard, Stanford, Kellogg, Duke, Wharton, etc. And we are really, really excited to help you on your MBA application journey and help you get into the school of your dreams. And now we're going to dive into the MBA expert panel. So really excited to learn from their experiences. And so to kick things off, sorry, first and foremost, important to set like what are the M7 schools and which schools will be highlighted. So Stanford Graduate School of Business, Harvard Business School, Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, MIT Sloan, Kellogg, which is at Northwestern University, the University of Chicago Booth, and Columbia Business School. So we're going to dive in. So to kick things off, I'm going to hand it over to Mario to talk through the Stanford GSB.
All right, happy to talk through aspects of the Stanford GSB. If we look at this first slide, there's three things that kind of jump off the page for me here. The first is the class size at 424. Having a smaller class size is one of the unique calling cards of Stanford, and I thought that really led to a lot of benefits in my experience there. On one side, the amount of closeness you get within your class is a very high level because of that small, tight-knit community, and you have the ability to be exposed to people from very diverse backgrounds as well as diverse interest sets. And there's less ability of congregating around similar interests because of the class size. I think the other underrated but aspect that I really enjoyed about the class size is that it means deeper relationships are possible between class years, which I think is a little bit of a distinct calling card about Stanford, something I really enjoyed. Second thing to call out here is on the right-hand side, the post-MBA industries. That's pretty accurate. One thing that I wouldn't say is represented there is the percentage of people that flirted with the idea of entrepreneurship or actually pursued entrepreneurship. That's probably included in those buckets in some way. I would say the feeling of entrepreneurship really pervades the entire campus culture in a very positive way. And that has very many flavors, whether that's through the coursework offered, such as Lean Launchpad and Startup Garage, or through kind of novel mechanisms of entrepreneurship that were created at Stanford, such as entrepreneurship through acquisition. That really shows itself well. And then the third thing here is Stanford's application is one of the longest and most comprehensive of the schools. And so if you're planning to apply to multiple schools, I normally advise my coachees to start with Stanford, because when you hit a lot of those different components of like the extracurriculars and the activities, as well as the central what matters to you most and why, that can unlock a lot of the thinking for other schools. So those are some points on this first slide here. Moving to the second slide, these essay prompts, what matters to you most and why, is really a opportunity to jump off the page to admissions to the AdCom. And so I encourage everyone to take that opportunity. Say something that is unique and out of the box, but still very genuine to you, and kind of see where that goes. I really encourage multiple iterations of this, because it's hard to get to the right thing on the first time, but it's a really fun essay to write. I would say that these two essays about what matters to you most and why Stanford are really intertwined questions. I think the what matters to you most and why should lead directly into how Stanford helps you achieve whatever goal you were talking about. A phrase that Stanford has is change lives, change organizations, change the world. What matters to you most should, funnel into some way that you're going to impact the world. And Stanford should be uniquely positioned as an accelerant to that impact. And that is kind of the story or the thread that I recommend that coachees go through in the essay prompts. I'm going to quickly touch on some of the strengths. I prepared my own list as opposed to what's on the slide, but those are all true and on the slide. One thing that I think really makes Stanford unique is its emphasis on interpersonal dynamics. There's a course called Interpersonal Dynamics, colloquially called Touchy-Feely, and that focus on understanding what drives the strength of our relationships? How do we show up in groups? What influence do I wield in different scenarios? Was a amazingly transformative experience to go through as a course while at Stanford. And that expands just beyond the classroom to all kind of social interactions in a very positive way, I found. Additionally, there's a lot of flexibility with the quarter system of taking a lot more classes. You could do dual degrees like I did with other schools within Stanford's community. A lot of people do a joint degree with the Graduate School of Education, or they do joint degrees with the engineering school, and that flexibility is awesome. I already talked about the spirit of entrepreneurship, which is super cool. And then the last thing I'll say of the strength is the alumni has been extraordinarily supportive to both me and all of my classmates. I think that's something that can be said about all of these schools. But I can attest, and this is the last thing I'll say here before going to questions, is we take an oath as we graduate Stanford that we promise to respond to emails of any other Stanford graduate, whether that be interest in learning about a industry or anything, what have you. And so I've seen that commitment to the alumni body really bear itself out. So that's Stanford in my eyes.
Thank you, Mario. Super powerful that they make you pledge an oath to giving back to the Stanford network. One question for you. So if you had to provide so obviously you provide a lot of great insight and some good tips for the essays. If you had to share one tip for applying to the Stanford GSB, what would that one tip be?
The one tip I'd say is, because Stanford's application is so broad, real estate management is super important. When I say real estate management, I mean having your resumes and your extracurriculars and activities section and your essays and your letters of rec all tell a complementary but non-duplicative story. And working with a coach and working with your recommenders to make sure that those themes tie together but are not repeating the same one, I think that's probably the largest tip I'd give. But that also, holds at all these schools.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mario. Really appreciate the insights. We're going to move on to Ariel for Harvard Business School. So over to you, Ariel.
Thanks, Andrew. So I won't read through all the stats. A couple things I'll point out. I believe that the HBS deadline is one of the earliest, so definitely start reaching out to coaches, recommenders, and start thinking through that very open-ended essay question that you have there. And I think another thing I'll point out here is the class size. So I think it's important to think about what type of school that you want to attend in terms of whether you want a larger class size or a smaller class size and where you think you'll thrive. One thing I want to point out, though, is definitely don't be intimidated by 1,000 people. You're not going to get lost in the shuffle. I think one thing that HBS does really well is the sections. And so the sections are about 90 to 100 people, and they're really the bedrock of your academic and your social experience. And so it gives you a small community in a large pool. And then you're also able to connect with others through clubs and things like that if you want to expand beyond just your section, but you can really find a home and a social community in your section. So don't be intimidated by that large class size. I think, actually, sorry, one more thing that I might point out. So I think, of course, many schools have a lot of folks going into consulting. I think that's probably pretty common across all of the schools. One thing that I will mention is that I think there's certain schools that are known for being entrepreneurship schools. And I've had quite a few applicants come to me and ask, should I mention entrepreneurship in my HBS application? I heard that they don't like entrepreneurs. And that's just not true. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurship resources at HBS. Including the Rock Center as well as courses. And we've had a lot of successful alumni graduate and start up and create startups. And so I think like definitely don't shy away from a school because it's not necessarily like labeled as an entrepreneurship school, and definitely dig into that a little bit more, because I think most of the schools in their post MBA industries aren't going to necessarily like call out entrepreneurship. So dig a little bit deeper for that one. We can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the essay prompt is a little bit more open-ended than maybe some of the other application essays. And so they're really asking you kind of what else outside of your resume, outside of your stats, like your GPA and your GMAT score, tell us something more. And so this is where I would really encourage applicants to get really crisp on their story and understand like who makes you who you authentically are. You know, everyone's done consulting. Everyone has a great GMAT score, a great GPA, et cetera. What makes you who you are? And tell that story. And I think like it requires a lot of self-reflection. And as a coach, I'm really big on like giving self-reflection the time that it's due and like not just jumping straight into the essays. So doing some thinking about what are your strengths, what are your values, how did you come to those values, and how does that inform your career in the future can really set you up well to think about like what you might discuss in your HBS essay. A couple of the strengths that I will call out, one is mentioned here, so the case method. Pretty much all of the courses at HBS are taught using the case method. And I would say it's definitely like a very unique style of learning, and one that I felt like really pushed me to get more comfortable with sharing my opinions, or sharing even like not even fully thought out opinions or perspectives, and really just like learning from other classmates who have come from different industries. I would say that the courses are really facilitated by the professors, and they definitely lend their knowledge and expertise, but like you're really learning from what your classmates are coming to in the discussion. And so you having that experience and being able to have your voice in the room is a really important part of the HBS experience. And definitely one that I think a lot of people enjoy. People love to talk about the cases over dinner and things like that because they're so interesting. The second piece that I'll mention as a strength is actually the international kind of aspects that you'll get at HBS. One course that folks really tend to love is a course called Biggie. I don't remember, I think it's like business and the international economy, a lot of acronyms, but search Biggie. And it's just really helping you to understand like international economies. A lot of like folks who maybe came from like social sciences backgrounds really enjoyed that course because it really connects like history to the, you know, present day business. And then another experience that people really enjoy, and that's like a capstone of the experience, is the field global immersion. I personally did not get to participate because of COVID, but that was something that when I was looking at HBS was something that I was extremely excited to do, and something that is still just like a highlight of people's experience at HBS. So definitely look into that as well.
Awesome. And then one just quick question. Every school has its own culture. If you had to just give like a quick 20, 30-second pitch on the Harvard Business School culture, how would you describe it?
That's a really good question. I would say curious. I think because of like the discussion method and the case method and like the discussion that happens in classrooms, I think there's a lot of curiosity that comes out of that. And I think like even after class, you can hear like discussions being continued about some of the issues that we're grappling with in class. And even if it's like not, you know, academic focused, like people at HBS like love getting together for dinners and just having like really deep intellectual discussions or discussions about things that are happening in the world. And so I think that's one thing I really enjoyed about it. But I would say just like very quickly that no one should be like intimidated by the HBS culture. I would say like people are very welcoming and inviting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ariel. And Erica, just as a reminder to the audience, Erica will be dropping each of the coach profiles of each of the panelists in the chat. So if you want to connect with them further, chat with them, work with them one-on-one, you can certainly click into the link into their profile, and there's a message button to connect with them directly if that's something you'd like to do. We're going to go over to Wharton. So over to you, Wyatt.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, so first thing that I will say about Wharton is it has been the most fun I've ever had. I had no idea that business school would be as enjoyable of an experience as it's been. Coming in to Wharton, people oftentimes, and I've heard this from a lot of applicants, they always say Wharton is competitive or it's cutthroat, and I have no idea how that started. I honestly don't even know what we'd compete on. And this is probably something, kind of Ariel talked about this with HBS and the fact that everyone's competing really for a different job. You might have someone that's competing for the similar office, but we have grade non-disclosure. You're definitely not competing against people in the classroom. You're not competing for jobs. And if anything, I've felt that it has been an insanely collaborative culture. And the people I've met, the friends I've made, especially coming as a non-traditional applicant, right? I was a military officer without any kind of business background. And a year in, I'm not sure if it's been the classes or the people that I've talked to on a daily basis that have educated me more and made me really feel like, just kind of the first real world experience coming into an internship with a real company, being able to actually hold my own, and feel like I've become prepared really, and really looking forward to another year to have that experience. So a little bit about Wharton. We are also a fairly large class. We're not quite as big as HBS, but we have almost 900 students in each class. So I believe we're the second largest full-time program. And unlike Harvard, we don't have the section. We have cohorts, but they're not nearly as integrative as a section is. So you are totally able to choose your own classes first and second year. And while we do have core classes that are required, you're not required to take them at any time, or you're not required to have a set amount of classes. So that's a really big thing, that you can choose the time and the classes that you want with a pretty good degree of freedom, except for a few classes that are really, really popular. Notably negotiations or legal and transactional aspects of entrepreneurship. We also don't have class on Friday, which is a huge thing. I text my friends at other schools and ask them how their Fridays are when I'm on trips with classmates. So it doesn't seem like a big deal. And if you're someone that really wants, to be in maybe a super rigorous academic environment, keep that in mind, that you will learn. And I felt like I've learned an insane amount the first year, but we don't have class on Fridays, and you can really kind of adjust your schedule. One notable thing is we're 50% women in our classes, so we've achieved gender parity, and that's that's something that's pretty cool to see in the classroom. Is that it's a very diverse student body across many dimensions, right? I noticed that as a veteran, that there's been people that have come up to me and said I've never met a U.S. military officer until I came here, and now I've met like 5 or 6, and similar across gender, across sexuality, across international boundaries. It's actually trending more international, especially now that COVID's over. Post MBA industries, Wharton really is a pretty widely distributed school. People talk a lot about finance, and we do have quite a bit of finance, but as you can see from the industries, it's not a finance school anymore. It probably once was, but consulting, tech, and investment management, as well as just normal kind of, Fortune 500 LDPs, entrepreneurship through acquisition, search funds have become a big thing at Wharton, as I think they are kind of trending towards for other schools. So you have an opportunity to really extend into a lot of different areas. So we can go to the next slide. So forward to Wharton's. Oh, I think we're going back. All right. Yeah, so Wharton's essays differ quite a bit from the HBS and the GSBs. While those I think are great at strategy, and I'd actually concur with Mario that it's that having that kind of broader strategic focus and paring it down to a tactical might be the best option. That's what I tell people, even if they're interested in Wharton and say GSB or Booth. I know their essays are also a little more broad. Wharton's ask you to be a lot more tactical, and you should be giving, I say, specific and audacious goals that you have, both short-term, long-term, and then very specific and very interesting ways that you're going to contribute to the community. My essay that I wrote about what you'll contribute to Wharton, I made specific mentions of new clubs that I'd start, of new treks that I do. I even mentioned my wife. She's done a lot of work with yoga in youth prison systems, and we talked about how she wants to start that program in Philadelphia. We were living in Anchorage when she started that. To kind of add some flair. And I would encourage you to do something that makes you memorable, right? Makes you someone that they say that Wharton, they say that they're evaluating you on classroom, community, and career. And so make it so that you stand out for the community. For the strengths, analytics is definitely a thing. We have a lot of courses that are either have analytics or they're specifically titled analytics. So if you're interested in data, there's a lot of opportunities there with Wharton. It's a prep for every kind of career. We have a very strong entrepreneurship presence that's growing. And we just built Tang and Hall. We have a startup challenge that a startup that I was working on. We actually we won that challenge this year. And I can tell you that the entrepreneurship presence at Wharton is as strong as most schools. I don't know if it's probably as strong as a school like Stanford that's in the heart of Silicon Valley. I won't make that claim, but it's a very social school too. And that's been the thing that I've been able to appreciate. We also have a focus on healthcare. There's a healthcare major that you have to apply to as you're applying. So it's not a dual degree. It's not a master's of healthcare or a master's of public health. Like a school, I know Haas and Tuck do those, but we do have a healthcare focus that is a very well-run program. I've loved doing it. I'm in HCM. And it's been a super fun time. So if you're interested in HCM, please do reach out. If you're interested in doing a career in healthcare, the alumni network is insanely helpful, even within the Wharton Alumni Network. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about Wharton, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Wyatt. Appreciate the great insights. For sake of time, so that we get through all of the other schools, we're going to move on to the next. And Erica will drop Wyatt's profile in the chat. So if you want to reach out to him, feel free to do so. Okay, we're going to go over to MIT Sloan. So over to you, Jeremy.
Yep, thank you. So as you know, MIT Sloan is my alma mater. I will highlight a few things on this page and then we'll flip to the next page. So to start here, when I was at MIT Sloan, I found that the class size was one of the things that made it somewhat unique. It's smaller than some of the other programs. I think it fluctuates anywhere from around 400 to around 450. And within that class size, you're split further into cohorts they call oceans, that are literally named after oceans and other bodies of water across the planet. And the oceans are around 60 or 70 folks. And within those, you get to know your classmates really well. And so for the first semester, you take courses with only your cohort, which is an interesting concept. And then within your cohort or your ocean, you're in a core team of 6 to 7 people. So you have these like Russian nesting dolls, as they call them, of getting smaller and smaller. And so you have a core team of 6 to 7 who you become very close with because you're working through problem sets, you're doing homework with them. Almost all of your work is done from your classes in these core groups for that first semester. A couple other things to call out on here. Consulting is a big exit for folks who are coming out of Sloan. However, I would highlight that technology and healthcare are also, healthcare is probably a little bit under rep because some of it's rolled into other things, but because MIT is located in Cambridge and that's a hub of a lot of biotech and pharma and healthcare work, there are a lot of folks who end up doing work in that as well. And I'll talk about MIT's technology presence in a moment. You want to flip, Andrew? Cool. So I'll cover the app stuff really quickly, and then we'll move on to some of the strengths and my experience. The video statement is super unique to Sloan. So you're required to create a 1-minute video, can't be any longer than that. And the task is to introduce yourself to your classmates. And my tips for this video are to be yourself, to make it interesting, make it entertaining. And one of the ways you can do that is to shoot your video at a place or with items that represent you. So for me, I love tennis. I used to work as a ball boy at the US Open. And so I shot mine at a tennis court and I had a tennis racket in my hand. And it was a part of what I talked about because I wanted people to get to know who I really was. And then the cover letter, which is only 300 words, also short, is more of the chance to talk about what you've done in your career so far, why you want to come to Sloan, and then what you plan to do after and why Sloan is important on that journey. So the Sloan app is honestly very short, but that also means that every word or everything you say or write has to have even more of an impact. In terms of my experience at the school, I want to just highlight a few things. You can see here Sloan's motto, mens et manus, which it means mind and hand, is their way of saying we learn through action. We learn through taking what's here and putting it out into the world. And there are lots of opportunities to do that. At Sloan, there are courses called Action Learning Labs. And in these courses, which you can sign up for after that first semester, you're doing work in teams, you're going out and working with companies, and some of them, there's a travel component. My brother actually just graduated from Sloan as well, and he went to Israel with the Israel Lab. So he did work for an Israeli company, an Israeli startup, and got to work on some really cool stuff and got to take an awesome trip across the world. Sloan is also has a big emphasis on entrepreneurship. There's something called the Martin Trust Center, which is really the hub for all of it. And the big name who runs it all, his name's Bill Aulett. He has a really well-known book, Disciplined Entrepreneurship. So there, excuse me, are tons of courses that interface with the Trust Center. In other words, you're put in teams and you're working on real ideas with real people who are guiding you from the Trust Center, who've seen companies go from, starting out in that lab to being major forces in the world. One other thing I'll just highlight before I wrap up here is, Sloan has a reputation for having rigorous academics. It's not as rigorous as they say. The grades are, it's much different than undergrad. And typically it's not a problem doing okay on the academic side, although there is a little bit more of an emphasis on quantitative, given that it is MIT. And then there are different ways to specialize in your experience through different tracks and certificates. So those are the big things. Sloan is a fantastic place.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Jeremy. One question, having gone through the whole campus experience, what is one thing that you wish you knew back when you were applying? So you can take the knowledge that you have now. What is something you wish you knew when you were applying years ago?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that it's the people who set Sloan apart. And I think almost all the schools, every school will say this because every school attracts a unique type of person. What I didn't know was the level of kindness and genuine desire to help and to collaborate of really every student that I met there. And I think I made a great choice by going to Sloan, but knowing that before would have just, it was hard to know it without being there. And that's what I learned from being on campus.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the thoughts. Okay, over to you, Janeet, to highlight Kellogg.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. Awesome. So a few things I would highlight about Kellogg. Kellogg has one of the most flexible MBA programs in the sense that they have the 2-year, the 1-year, the part-time evening, and so on. They have a JD MBA if you wanted to do dual. They have the MD MBA. They have a triple M program, which is more focused on design as well. So, quite flexible in terms of what you're looking for that you could consider. The other thing I'd like to highlight industry-wise, while most of these are quite similar to the others, there's a strong some of the strongest exit opportunities are in consulting and tech. Probably the biggest. Tech tends to focus more on like product management. And then there is a lot of focus on marketing, and that's why you'll have kind of the Fortune 500, the CPG companies, and so on. What's not on here and is increasingly becoming more popular, as some of the other folks have mentioned, is entrepreneurship in general, as well as entrepreneurship through acquisition. And yeah, so those are some of kind of the key highlights on this page. Most of it's available on the website, so I won't spend more time. On the essays, the Kellogg admissions essays are definitely much more pinpointed in scope than some of the other schools. So the first one's more to allow you to demonstrate your leadership, highlights from your previous experiences. Kellogg has a big culture of inclusivity, student-led involvement, and just like highly values teamwork. So you'll want to make sure you highlight some of those experiences in the past of yours as a leader. The second one's more focused on your values. And so similarly, kind of knowing that Kellogg has this focus on student collaboration as well as like student-led initiatives. Most clubs, but as well as like many Kellogg programs in general are run by students. And that's one thing I sort of realized once I got to campus is the level of inclusivity as well as the level of ownership that students take to sort of be a part of the culture on campus. So those are some things you'll want to highlight in that essay as well. Specifically on strengths, all of these are definitely true. A few that I might want to highlight. Marketing there's some great opportunities on marketing in terms of the coursework that's available, as well as the professors. So one course I'd like to highlight would be marketing strategy for growth in defense. If you're interested in marketing, it'll probably be one of the first courses we'll take. A big portion of that course is you do a simulation in groups where you basically get a couple of products, and as a team, you can sort of on a weekly basis change the price points, the placement, the channels, and decide where to allocate your resources to change that product in the industry. And you're competing against other classmates' products, and then there's a refresh and you see what the shifts are in the industry, so you get a sense of how your decisions and your classmates' decisions impact the industry as well as like profitability of your product. So that was like a very real life scenario. It kind of hits on the experiential learning, which is another big part of Kellogg. The other one I could highlight, I'd like to highlight is I mentioned entrepreneurship. There's courses on various startup sort of courses. So you could start on like a new venture discovery where you're starting to think through potential startup ideas and test it. And then you can work through other courses that sort of build on that to go and build a prototype and launch. There's also a Zell Fellows program where you could really go deep and spend the entire year either building a startup or thinking about acquiring a company through ETA. So yeah, those are some of the strengths and things that I really enjoyed about Kellogg. Feel free to ping me if you have more questions. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Janeet. The one last thing I'll add is Kellogg has something called Quest. And it's a trip that you take for a week with a bunch of classmates. And for the first couple of days, you can't talk about your career, where you're from. And so you get to know the individuals on the trip in a much deeper level. And then midway through the trip, you do the big reveal where you can share a little bit about where you're from and your background and other things. So I know that a lot of business schools do a lot of travel, but that's a fun cultural thing that Kellogg does. And I'm headed on my Kellogg trip in a couple of weeks from now. So pretty excited about that on my Quest trip, sorry, a couple of weeks from now.
The other one point I might add is
yeah, go ahead.
A lot of inclusivity with significant others as well. So like significant others are invited to all of these trips. Kellogg sponsored or not sponsored, but Kellogg developed trips. And so my SO felt very included on the entire campus life.
Awesome. Yeah. Big +1 to that. I'm gonna send it over to you, Ryan.
Awesome. Let me give you 3 quick reasons why Booth is better than all of these other schools. I'm just playing. Honestly, everyone did an incredible job. It's fun for me to be here with this cohort of people speaking. And they're all incredible schools. I was just joking. So first thing I'll say, I freaking loved Booth. Like my experience there was amazing. And so many things I could say about just the experience that would maybe be helpful, but hopefully I'll try and give you a couple maybe insider tips or reflections from my experience. So first, well, and on my, why I loved Booth, just before I forget and move on, one thing I loved about it is you're in Chicago, and I'd never been to Chicago before I interviewed. The city's beautiful. There's multiple campuses. You can take classes downtown on the river, which is epic. Amazing food. You can take class at Hyde Park, obviously. And then there's a Hong Kong and London campus, which I didn't make it to, but I should have, because that would have been incredible as well. So just an awesome place to spend 2 years. So one quick story, I remember sitting in one of my first classes at Booth, and you're kind of in like the semicircle seating, and I was looking around, people were talking about like their careers, what they had done. I was like doing a little bit of LinkedIn hunting as well, and just like looking at names, what their background was. And I remember seeing there were 2 McKinsey consultants who were from Brazil. There was a guy who worked in oil and gas from Chile, and there was an investment fund manager of some sort from Taiwan. There was a farmer, a guy who was a farmer, lived in Chicago in a rural area and ran a massive farm. And then there was head of HR at Kraft Heinz, like the ketchup company, was sitting right next to me. And I was just like, man, this is incredible. Like the diversity, the melting pot of backgrounds was off the charts. And I feel like I learned so much from it. And a lot of these schools can say the same, but I felt that way for sure at Booth. I feel like it is a strength that you just have a little bit of everything. So that, sorry, Andrew didn't fully speak to all the stats, but I think it is peppered in throughout that. So as far as like essay prompts and strengths, I think flexibility is the ` word that comes to mind for me. And so going into my MBA, I had studied finance. So going back a little further, I went to high school. I'm from Utah, went to high school in Paraguay down in South America, and then studied finance for my undergrad. So going into like my MBA, I was like, okay, I've done quant numbers. You're probably thinking like, well, why did you go to Booth? Because it has more of a quant focus potentially. But I wanted just like leadership. I kind of felt like I want to go into tech, which is, I worked at Salesforce after, and I want to ultimately start my own business, run a company. So I wanted like leadership, behavioral science, and that type of an experience, which is what I did. And then one of my closest friends who was also at Booth, he was the exact opposite. He wanted to start a real estate fund. And so he was looking for like the heaviest quant you could find. So my MBA experience, because it's so flexible and you can take, there are very few required courses. I was taking designing a good life, negotiations, behavioral economics from phenomenal world-class professors who, had been to a lot of these schools that have been mentioned. And whereas my buddy was taking private equity, entrepreneurial finance and private equity, intense modeling courses. So you can get whatever experience you're looking for. You've been around the block, right, with your undergrad. And so you know more about what you want. And that's something I loved about Booth. Last of all, if I can just say one thing about the application itself, my #1 tip I would say is to try and begin with the end in mind. Like if you can put yourself in the admission seat and think, okay, why would I let Ryan Wade into our school, right? Like what's he going to bring to the table? If you're in iBanking, what will make you an interesting investment banker to let into our school? If you're not, like if you're from call it a non-traditional path, like what will set you apart? I think having that frame of reference is super helpful, because then throughout your entire application, from essays to resume, you can highlight like, this is why I'm really interesting in the category that I'm applying through, right? Like the industry category. So hopefully that makes sense, but I've found with the applicants I've worked with, that's an incredible way to just, make their applications stand out and just, and be cool and fun to, exciting to read, as opposed to just being something that's maybe more boring.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it. We are going to go to our final school, Columbia Business School. So over to you, Yi.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And I really enjoyed hearing perspectives from the other business schools as well. So thanks to the entire panel for being here. So as I mentioned in my intro, I'm currently going into my second year at Columbia Business School. And just a quick thing to call out, as most of you may know, Columbia changed the kind of the application process this year. So instead of having early decision, we are changing to rounds, which is like the first time we've done this in I think forever. So basically, I work closely with the admissions office. So they say if you still want to be considered for kind of demonstrated interest, apply in round one, but obviously the different rounds don't really matter. And then as for the class size, one thing I really enjoy about Columbia is kind of having the cluster system, which I heard a lot of my peers talk about as well. So we are also a pretty big class size, around 600 people in August entry, and then around another 200 to 250 people in January entry. So everyone is placed in clusters, and then within the clusters, they are learning teams. And throughout the year, there's so many like fun activities between clusters. So for instance, like for Halloween last year, we did a cluster A through D Halloween party. And then there's also Cluster Cup, which basically kind of is like a competition between all the other clusters. There's typically like 7 to 8 total clusters per class. And then basically the champion wins like a trophy, and it's like an entire week thing. So it's a really fun way to kind of bond with people in at school where it's such a big class size. And then in terms of post MBA industries, even though consulting is the primary, I've been seeing like a lot of tech and other industries pop up as well. So for me, like I'm interested in retail and marketing. So there's like definitely something for everyone at Columbia. And then if we go to the next page, I think just quickly on the essays, I think one piece of advice I would give for those interested in CBS is that Columbia really values where you think Columbia kind of fits in to your short-term and long-term goals. So they're a very like tactical school in terms of how does your prior experiences really bring you to this point, and why do you think an MBA is necessary at this point in your career, and kind of taking a holistic view of what you dream to be doing like 5 years into the future, but also kind of taking a step back and kind of thinking from a more like cultural and like professional fit perspective. For me, I thought it was really helpful to connect with a lot of students before applying and kind of tying their insights into the essays. And one of the questions actually in the application is how many Columbia students did you talk with? So it's helpful to like connect with as many people as you can, but also being very strategic in terms of like speaking to people in the industries you want to go into and kind of asking them more things about like what they did in their application. So I think in terms of key strengths, Columbia was my top choice just because I wanted to get a lot of experience in New York. Being from consulting, I kind of really wanted to immerse myself into like the retail and marketing environment. So I think one of the core things is the in-semester internship opportunities that you can do at Columbia. So I did an in-semester internship last semester at Hugo Boss, and I'm planning to do another one in the fall as well. So it's just that flexibility of having more than one internship throughout your MBA career, I thought was really, really exciting. And then I think the second thing is just the executives in residence program. So they are people who are in the C-suite who kind of come to Columbia like once every month or so and like meet with students one-on-one. And there are execs kind of representing every single industry from consulting to banking to retail and healthcare. So I actually met one of the kind of professors I TA'd for last semester. So her name was Pauline Brown, she used to be the chairman of LVMH North America. So I thought it was just a very, very rewarding experience, just being able to kind of learn from her experience and kind of tie that to where I want to go in the future. But yeah, happy to answer any other questions over email as well. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You really appreciate it. There were a lot of statistics, a lot of essay prompts and strengths and things shared throughout this entire session. As a reminder, this recording will be shared with you, and a lot of these resources can also be accessed through our platform. And just to wrap things up, want to say a huge thank you to these panelists. Would have loved to give each of you an hour and we could sit here all night learning about all the amazing stories and experiences and resources and things you've tapped into at all of these top schools. But appreciate the quick and concise and really thoughtful tips and experiences that you shared with us tonight. So can we give them all a big round of applause and tell them thank you in the chat? And that's a wrap. That ends MBA week. We've done over 15 sessions, shared lots of tips, resources, and valuable advice for navigating the MBA application process. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. A couple things to leave you with. Highly recommend reaching out to the panelists today for one-on-one coaching and tapping into their expert advice. The best way to improve your ability to get into one of these top programs is getting help and expertise and mentorship from individuals who have done it themselves and understand the process really well. As a reminder, subscribe for Leland Plus. Having gone through the competitive MBA application process myself, and also seeing thousands of people go through it, Leland Plus is a phenomenal resource for you to leverage. And as a reminder, the discount code offered through MBA week will expire tomorrow night. So be sure to subscribe for Leland Plus to get access to that to that offer. And then lastly, spread the word. Come follow us on social. We have a pretty big presence on LinkedIn, TikTok, and some of our other social channels. A lot of our events are uploaded onto YouTube, so feel free to subscribe there and you'll get access to all of the recordings and things from MBA week and other events that we've shared. Once again, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and for being here, and hope you have a good rest of the night and good luck applying to MBA programs. See ya.